Before you watch this video, I would like to apologize. The video you're about to watch, admittedly, does not live up to the expectations of the quality of editing I'm sure you've come to expect from the CMeeCraft Gaming YouTube channel. The reason for that is that I did put together a very nicely edited version of this review that included clips from the film to illustrate my points and all that sort of great stuff. However, when I attempted to upload that video, it got consistently copyright claimed by Universal. I did appeal on the grounds of fair use, because given that it's a review, a critique of the film, it should fall very clearly within the realm of fair use, but I guess Universal disagrees. And I've gotten to the point in the process now where if I were to push further, I would basically just be inviting Universal to give me a copyright strike and then potentially sue me. So, in order to not have that happen, I decided I'd just put up the audio of this review over some footage from some Mario games. Again, I'm sorry, I know this is not what you've come to expect from this channel, but this is the best I can put up on YouTube right now. Nevertheless, I hope you do enjoy the video, so let's get into that. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is out. It exists, and I just got a chance to see it. And I'll be honest, between it being a video game movie, which is a type of adaptation which Hollywood has historically been notoriously terrible at, and the fact that Illumination was making it, which, from what I gather, is the quintessential mid-animation studio in the industry, I went in cautiously. And I guess before we get into specifics and spoilers, let's get the bottom line issue out of the way. Was the movie good? And my answer to that, coming from the perspective of someone who honestly doesn't watch too many movies, but has been a fan of the Mario games since the mid-2000s, is that basically yes. It's not some cinematic or storytelling masterpiece, but it was fun, funny, competently put together, and overall quite faithful to the source material. So there you go. Overall, does CMeeCraft Gaming recommend the film? Yes. So if all you were here for was a spoiler-free yay or nay, there you go, you have my blessing to go see the film. But now, let's delve into the specifics. And fair warning to any of you who haven't seen the movie yet, because from here on out, there'll be spoilers. To start with, let's talk about the music. I know, weird place to start, but honestly it was the first thing to land a strong impression on me, so that's where we'll begin. Even from the first scene, the music impressed me. They've managed to weave iconic Mario themes and melodies into the film's soundtrack in a way that is recognizable, but in my opinion, not distracting. I suppose what I'm saying is that in general, the Mario music was used in a way that felt legitimately correct and considered, and not just as mere references. Granted, perhaps this is where my biases get in the way of objectivity. For me, hearing the themes that I had grown up with recomposed for the silver screen and blaring out of a theater's sound system was almost in and of itself an emotionally resonating experience. That's probably just me succumbing to nostalgia bait, but hey, if it was an enjoyable experience, how can I really argue with that? And really, Illumination seems to have cast their net wide with the sorts of Mario fans they can appeal to in that sort of way. In the music department, there's compositions pulled from all over the Mario canon. Songs from as far back as Super Mario Bros., if not earlier. Sorry, I'm not really familiar with Donkey Kong or Mario Bros. Music. And as recent as Bowser's Fury. But it doesn't stop at music. Elements from all over the Mario series have been brought in, and almost without fail operate in the film just like how they do in the games. Whether we're talking about coins being comically large, enemies like brambles and dry bones behaving exactly as they should, or power-ups being brought over into the film and even being lost after taking a hit, which is such a video gamey mechanic, I did not expect to see that actually make its way into the film. But here it is. Though technically on that count they did do the mini mushroom wrong, because if you get hit with the mini mushroom, you're supposed to die, not just return to normal size. Oh well, can't win them all, I guess. But if I had to summarize the movie's faithfulness to the source material in a single scene, I'd point to the one where Mario is fighting Donkey Kong and attempts to turn the tables by using a power-up, a blue mushroom. If you know Mario games, then the movie in that moment created dramatic irony by virtue of the fact that it does generally follow Mario rules and logic. And therefore, you know, oh, that's a mini mushroom, this is not going to go as Mario planned, but, you know, he goes for it anyways because he doesn't know any better. Hence the dramatic irony. And that's not it. An eagle-eyed viewer could have predicted the climax of the Mario Kart homage just by paying attention to the helmet of the Koopa leading the pursuit, So yeah, in terms of faithfulness to the source material, this movie does very well. It's the sort of movie where being familiar with the games increases your enjoyment by being able to notice all of these details that do line up, and not the sort of adaptation where being familiar with the source material just gives you a bunch of gripes of like, that's not supposed to work like that, and why didn't they do this, and all that sort of stuff. But of course, faithfulness to the source material is all well and good, but it doesn't mean much if the storytelling fundamentals aren't sound. So let's talk plot and characters. In terms of plot, the Super Mario Bros. Movie doesn't seem to be adapting any particular Mario game's story, which is honestly probably for the best. Quite frankly, I'm not sure any of them would have been able to carry a feature-length film as a direct adaptation. If I had to pick one it was closest to, I'd have to go with Super Mario Odyssey, mostly due to how heavily it leans into the Bowser Wants to Marry Peach storyline, which honestly took me a bit off guard. I mean, it's not unheard of. Like I said, that is the plot of Super Mario Odyssey, and it's a concept that comes up in other games like Super Paper Mario, but even still, I didn't expect them to go this hard on it. To the extent that nearly every Bowser scene in it, where he's not directly antagonizing our heroes, features him plotting some way to win over Peach romantically, and or worrying that Mario is wooing her. Outside of that love triangle, malicious marriage plot, this movie is also an origin story for the Mario Bros. Arriving in the Mushroom Kingdom, which I think is fine, but it does irk me a bit that they made Mario's call to adventure him sitting down and watching the news. You know, one of the most cliched ways possible to convey information to a character in a film. Whatever. Guess it's functional, but still annoys me slightly. And of course, once the plot starts getting going properly, there is, of course, a damsel in distress rescue mission. I mean, come on, it's a Mario movie. How could it not be about Mario rescuing Peach? Well, actually it isn't. In this film, Luigi serves as the damsel in distress. Which honestly was probably a better choice from a screenwriting perspective, since we have more time in the beginning of the film to get to know Luigi during the Brooklyn section, before Peach is even introduced, and by extension, since we know him better, his imprisonment theoretically should have more of an emotional impact on the audience. This frees up Peach to accompany Mario throughout the adventure, which I like because that means we get more screen time with Mario and Peach interacting with each other and building their chemistry and dynamic throughout the film. And you know what? That seems like a great transition to start talking about the characters. And let's begin with our main man, Mario himself. Chris Pratt's Mario is your standard everyman character who's new to this crazy Mushroom Kingdom. He's our Harry Potter, our Alice, our Emmett, who, come to think of it, Chris Pratt actually played as well. Now, in terms of vocal performance, I'll give it to you straight. He doesn't sound like Charles Martinet's portrayal of the character from the games at all. But he's not really trying to, and honestly, it may be for the best. I'm not sure I could have taken a voice like this seriously for an hour and a half long film. So honestly, I got used to his take on the character pretty quick. Now, as for the character's personality and arc, it's alright, but it's nothing groundbreaking. The Mario brothers have quit a steady job under foreman Spike to start their own plumbing business, which seems to be floundering at the start of the film. They don't have many customers, and even the brothers' own family are ridiculing them for throwing away a secure occupation and place in life, and instead trying to cut their own path in the world. Mario's main struggle throughout the film is in continuing to push through in spite of the hardships and setbacks he experiences, both as an entrepreneur and in his quest to save his brother and the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, interestingly, this isn't really a story about him growing as a character and gaining the perseverance he needs to face the challenges before him. He already has perseverance in spades at the start of the film. The first defining scene we see of him is him parkouring through a construction site to reach a plumbing job when his van is broken down. No, really, this is a story about whether or not he can keep up that determination and perseverance as he gets repeatedly smacked around, both figuratively and literally. It's an interesting direction, and as someone who can relate to the struggle of pushing through to cut a very non-standard path through life, it really resonates with me personally. But that's not to say it's handled perfectly. In particular, I feel that the darkest hour moments felt quite token, because based on everything I'd seen from Mario throughout the film, the idea that now in the finale, he'd suddenly lose all his resolve and determination and question continuing, it didn't seem to jive with how he'd behaved up to that point. And it probably also didn't help that this is coming off the heels of a few minutes earlier, an almost literal belly of the whale moment. But yeah, that's Mario's main struggle throughout the film. There's also a few other minor arcs for him. Obviously, he gets better at handling himself in the strange world that is the Mushroom Kingdom throughout the film. And then there's also a very minor aspect where he doesn't like mushrooms, but has to deal with them anyway. But I view that more as a running gag than a serious character arc. So overall, Mario isn't much more than a standard everyman protagonist. Chris Pratt does a good job playing the straight man to the Mushroom Kingdom's wacky elements, and his inner struggles are theoretically interesting, but I think could have been sold better if we were able to really see him getting worn down over the course of the film, instead of the dark side just sort of happening after he takes a punch from Bowser. And speaking of, Jack Black as Bowser was a great performance. Bowser is a tough character to do well because you need to balance his raw power and intimidation with his more amiable and goofy personality quirks that we especially see in the Mario RPGs. And honestly, I think Jack Black threaded the needle pretty well. He swaps between menacing, singing, and nonchalance without losing a step. Now, I might not have gone quite so goofy were I writing him. In particular, I think you could have cut a scene or two of him being obsessed with Peach to give us a couple more scenes establishing what a serious threat he is. Because in terms of things Bowser himself does on screen, he annihilates some penguins, whose stand against him is literally framed as a joke. He tortures Luigi, establishing his cruelty, and outwits our heroes by ambushing them. But then in the first direct conflict with them, he gets frozen in like a few seconds. I don't know, I just felt like he could have used an Empire Strikes Back moment where he wipes the floor with an opponent who isn't established as literally a joke. But that being said, it was an absolute riot whenever Bowser was on screen, so I can't complain too much. But you know who would complain about Bowser? Princess Peach. Anya Taylor-Joy's Princess Peach is a more competent, proactive character than we've perhaps ever seen in a Mario game. This is definitely taken more from like the Super Mario 3D World mold than the old Super Mario Bros. Mold. She's the charismatic leader of the Mushroom Kingdom, and apparently the only capable combatant in the whole kingdom, on account of the rest being too adorable. I'll be honest, that explanation still annoys me somewhat. Like, really, you couldn't raise any troops at all to fight Bowser? You had to go beg the apes to bail you out? Though I do wonder if perhaps it's less so about the Toads being unable to field an army, and more so that Peach, being quite protective and fond of the Toads, couldn't bear to send them out to die for her sake. Anyway, like I said, this is a Peach with skills. She's lived in the Mushroom Kingdom for a long time, and therefore is more in the loop as to how things work, and thusly understands how to act most effectively while in this domain. She doesn't have much of a character arc. She starts the film as the kind-hearted, competent ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom, and ends it as the kind-hearted, competent ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom. But that's fine. Her narrative role in the film, especially early on, is mostly as a mentor and guide to Mario, helping him get his bearings in the strange Mushroom Kingdom. She's the film's Trinity or Wild style. Overall, I think she was a great addition to the cast. Her and Mario's banter had pretty good chemistry, and I think she avoids a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of characters superficially similar to her fall into. The two main reasons being, firstly, that while she is competent, that's not her only or even her primary character trait. She is legitimately kind and compassionate, and has an almost sort of maternal concern for the Toads. But also, as my second point, after getting a taste of the Mushroom Kingdom's public transit system, I can see why someone who grew up in the Mushroom Kingdom would end up being quite agile, so her competence is very believable in universe, which helps with her kind of character. And finally, while I was sort of disappointed Bowser got frozen so quickly in the wedding conflict, it was a pretty clever ploy and a twist for her to smuggle in a power-up via the bouquet, because, well, given what an ice flower is, that actually makes perfect sense in universe. So, points to Peach for being clever. So that's the main trio broken down. Now let me just quickly run through the rest of the cast that I have comments on. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad was a surprisingly pleasant performance. The marketing materials seem to be setting Toad up as the designated comic relief character, which is always a bit concerning, seeing as there's always a chance for a Jar Jar Binks. But thankfully, Toad antics actually hit fairly often, and even when they didn't, he always came across as dutiful and earnest, not annoying. Charlie Day as Luigi was pretty good. I don't remember him having any particular standout lines or moments, but he was there, his fight with the Dry Bones was cool, and he did have a bit of an arc about being braver, which is always nice. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong was honestly the character whose performance I had the hardest time accepting. That's just not what I pictured Donkey Kong sounding like. But he was a fine addition to the cast. His fight with Mario was one of the more memorable scenes of the film, and his little arc of swallowing his pride and working together with Mario was a nice little addition. And finally, the breakout performance of the whole film, I've got to talk about it. Juliet Jelenic as Luma Lee. Look, I have no idea why this Nihilist Luma is a thing, and quite frankly, if I had a child watching this film, I'd be at least slightly concerned at the prospect of them internalizing this creature's worldview. But he's so out of left field and so committed to the bit that I couldn't help but laugh at his antics. Look, I'm telling you, if this Luma hasn't already flooded the meme presses, he will soon. Mark my words. And now, a final wrap-up. Visually, the film looks nice. In my one watch thus far, I noticed a good amount of detail in the world, and I'm sure I missed a lot. And there were a few scenes that were inventive and very aesthetically pleasing. Before I watched this film, I did not realize I needed to see a field of fireflowers in bloom, but now I am most certainly glad that I did. Occasionally the film takes a straight-up side-on angle to replicate the aesthetic of 2D platformers, which I appreciate, but also can't help but think is a bit gimmicky. The action scenes were well done, seeing the various power-ups in action was a delight, and I think it was nice the amount of parkour-based action scenes we got, which is great considering the source material, and also since it serves to set the film apart a bit stylistically. And speaking of style, this did not feel like an Illumination film to me. Now, I don't see everything they make, far from it, but compared to things like Minions, it seemed at least a touch more highbrow, which I appreciate. So yeah, that's the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It's not the deepest film, and I do wonder if it's not a coincidence that a few parts of the film feel like theme park attractions. I wonder why that might be. But ultimately, I think it is finally a film worthy of carrying the Super Mario Bros. Name. And between this, Sonic, Detective Pikachu, and The Last of Us, I do wonder if perhaps we are officially in the era of decent video game movies. In any case, I will most certainly be curious to see what Nintendo tries next in the film space. But anyways, guys, that's been my review of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. If you agree or disagree, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you're interested more so in the video game side of things than the film angle, I've got loads of video game and Mario content on this channel for you to enjoy. So go ahead and subscribe if you think you'd like that. And additionally, I've got to thank my generous patrons, especially my $15 tier patron, Ashford Says. Finally, you may want to consider buying the card game I designed, Time Travel Entertainment Incorporated. But anyways, guys, until next time, I have been CMeeCraft, and I will catch you in the next video. Goodbye.